Good evening, boxing fans, and welcome to Tuesday. What is the date today? The 20th.
20th.
April the 20th, 2021. Another episode of
Enter the Ring 420, baby.
That's 420. Right. That's right. Another episode of Enter the Ring Live with your host, Mighty Mike.
AJ Rage.
And Eric the Red.
We're all here on time today.
Yeah. And it's 420 day, but I don't do pot, so I'm just going to be drinking beer and a little bit of alcohol. So.
I'm drinking Crystal Geyser water.
And I'm drinking whatever I have in my mini fridge.
Yeah, I didn't know it was 420 because, AJ, me and you with the music normally would be rehearsing on this day, and then half our band members were all potheads. We don't have that problem anymore, so that's a good thing.
That's just crazy. But yeah, so big. So I mean, obviously a big announcement, Mike, by Showtime. We got some great fights coming up.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to focus on. Yeah, we're going to focus on that today on this upcoming fight schedule that Showtime released a few days ago. We touched on it briefly on our Sunday show, but we want to obviously get into more detail because there's some great fights coming up, and a lot of them up and coming guys and a lot of veterans. In addition to with the fights that are coming up this weekend, the top ranked fights, but it's going to be exciting late spring into summer. And Showtime is the only one that I've seen put a schedule out like this. Normally, the other ones you get piecemeal, but Showtime just said, "Boom, here it is." Boom.
They're setting the bar, and they're setting the bar high. It looks like right now.
Yeah.
Good job, Showtime.
Very good job.
They're keeping their fight. They're keeping their fighters active, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to say they're all marquee matchups. I mean, but that's not Showtime's fault. Showtime's premiering the champions that need to be premiered. It's the champion's job to pick the right opponent, but that's another. We'll talk about that as we go
the champion. The fighters have to make it conducive to making the fight. They can't have ridiculous demands and to where where you just know the fight's not going to get made, and then to blame the promoter for not getting the fight made. So
exactly.
Well, I tell you what, you guys want to get into the Showtime card first, or do you want to talk about the fights coming up this weekend? There's a couple fights happening this weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about the fights this weekend.
Top Rank's putting on a card. I believe it's on ESPN Plus. I believe. Emmanuel Navarrete is fighting this weekend, right? He's fighting. And this is his first fight at 126.
Yeah, kind of a confusing matchup, I honestly think. I mean, especially Christopher Diaz being the fact that he was already moving up to 122, I believe. It's mind-boggling to me that they actually have.
They had him to jump another 4 pounds up to featherweight.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was he ESPN?
Was he a guy that struggled to make weight, or the money was right and they need somewhat of a name for Navarrete's first foray into the featherweight division?
I mean, I look at it with Christopher Diaz. I mean, he's a tough guy, but if you look at someone, he's a guy that won the title at one time, but he's just not. He was already small for the division at 122, and then for him to be now jumping up here and fighting, who's actually a guy who's big for the weight. I mean, 126 is going to be nothing for Navarrete to make. I honestly question how he was able to make 122 in the first place. It was like we went to see him fight against Panchito de Vaca. He was so much bigger. I mean, we both looked at each other kind of like, wow, this guy looks like he put 25 pounds on overnight.
Yeah, yeah. The fact that, like I said, I don't know, maybe there's something in the water, man, that allowed these guys to shed weight. And I don't know. I mean, there's a few of them out there that can still do it. Navarrete, I mean, he's a guy that popped.
Hey guys, I apologize. My wife just hit me. She can't find her keys. I'll be right back, guys. Okay.
No problem. Me and Eric will take over.
We got Eric.
So Eric,
yeah.
This I don't know how familiar you are with Emmanuel Navarrete, but he's a fighter.
He's a good fighter.
He's a good fighter. He's strong.
Yeah.
He's awkward. He's just one of those guys that, you look at him on paper, you look at his technical ability, and you think he's not a very good fighter, but he just throws these weird, wild, rangy punches, and he's just physically so much bigger.
What was his last fight? I think I just saw his last fight not that long ago, right? Didn't he just fight a while back?
He's most known for his two fights with where he won the title against, and the guy's name has escaped me right now. I don't know why. I'm having like a whatever. My brain's not working too good today. But he ended up fighting the little African guy. God, why can't I think of this guy's name? Tough fighter. Ended up beating him, taking the title from him, and then fought the rematch a few months later. Isaac Dogbe. Isaac Dogbe. That's right. He ended up beating Isaac Dogbe in by decision in the first fight, and then stopped him in the rematch. And then from there, a friend of mine, Panchito de Vaca, got a shot at Bank of California Stadium in California, and just came up short. He had the wrong game plan. He ended up getting stopped in, I think, 3 rounds.
Yeah.
But since then, he's fought, a steady list of good fighters. His last fight was against the undefeated Ruben Villa at featherweight. So this is actually his second foray at featherweight, and this is a title defense for the WBO title against Christopher Diaz, a guy who's a good fighter. He's got a good record, 26-2, but he's another guy that's coming up in weight, I believe, and he's small too. Diaz is only 5'6", like AJ said. He's small for that. He's not a big guy.
Navarrete he can balloon up quick,
Yeah. The key to beating Navarrete is you have to just box and move. You cannot try to stand and trade with this guy because he's got a head made out of concrete. And I mean, you just can't hurt the guy. And he doesn't have the most slickest, devastating punches from the eye test.
Unorthodox.
Yeah, but from the eye test, but they're thudding. He just has that thudding kind of power. It's very strange.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, he hits you from different angles and whatnot, so he's a little hard to hit too. So, you got to just box the hell out of the guy.
You got to box, man. You got to box and try to take him into deep waters and have him get frustrated or tired by trying to track you down and land the big punch, because he can be outboxed, thoroughly outboxed. But most guys at 126 and below, they can't outslug him because, like I said, I just don't think he's
got power.
Yeah, well, the opponents don't have enough power to hurt him. He's got a good chin, and like I said, he's got these freakishly long arms too.
Oh,
for a guy that's
like AJ,
just freakishly long.
Yeah, so like with AJ, I'm about 2 inches taller than AJ, and his reach is about 2.5 inches longer than mine.
Yeah, he's had long arms.
It's just that's a freak of nature type thing, but yeah, it's kind of cool though. I wish I had longer arms. You could pop people up from further away. So.
The other fight that's happening on this card,
I'm back.
The super middleweight, Edgar Berlanga is going to be fighting what I think is finally a legitimate test. Now, I don't know much about the guy. The guy does have a glossy record. The guy's name is Damon Nicholson. He's 23-3. He does have 20 knockouts. Obviously, we don't know what kind of competition that's come against. AJ, does that name Damon Nicholson, does it ring a bell? Have you ever seen this guy fight?
It actually does. It's another guy that if you,
got 20
kind of break down his record.
All hometown victories. I mean, he's not what you consider. He's slow. He's plodding. He's a slow starter. I mean, go back and look at some of his video. I review these guys right away. I see the pattern that Berlanga and his people. I understand as long as Berlanga keeps knocking people out in the first round, he's going to have that appeal. He's this monster. But let's be honest. Yeah, he's stepping in with the guy that has a bit of a pulse. But I'm not going to say that this guy isn't a couple steps away from flatlining.
Yeah, you're right. And looking at his record, it looks like most of his fights have taken place in his hometown of Maryland. He does have a couple in New York, which is
boxing hotbed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, his record's 23-3-1 with 20 knockouts.
In fact, if you look at his record, every time he stepped outside of Baltimore, Maryland, he's lost. He Philadelphia lost by a TKO, got stopped by Jesse Hart. He lost a split decision.
That's the fight I saw.
He lost to Steve Rolls at Turning Stone.
Yep.
And like I said, so I mean, if this guy's not fighting at home, I mean, I don't know.
No, yeah, he like I said, he's a homebred fighter. He's a guy that shows up for the hometown, but once he steps out of his comfort zone,
been stopped a couple times too. So that leads me to believe that if Berlanga lands a big shot, I mean, it could, they know what they're doing with Berlanga.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's not a knock on Berlanga, and it's not a knock on their people. As long as they can make this work for them and stuff, they're going to continue to do it. But unfortunately, like we saw against Vinny Balnicki. Vito, once you kind of step in there with a guy who actually takes boxing seriously and he's got a bit of some talent and a few tricks in his bag, it might not turn out the way Berlanga and his people want it to turn out. I just think they're setting the kid up for failure right now by not at this point with his what's his record right now? What is he?
16-0.
Yeah, at this point he should have already bought some guys, at least, within the top 20 or something. I mean, we're talking about guys that, you know.
Yeah, he's fighting guys that are nowhere on the radar. He's fighting guys that
No.
nobody. Yeah.
So for this guy even to put some of these other fighters that are in the top 10 in his conversations about possible matchups is ridiculous, because he hasn't even fought anybody outside the top 15 yet. Fight somebody outside the top 15 and then we'll talk.
Yeah. Don't bite up too much. You know.
Agreed. I don't particularly, like I said, I'm not impressed by Berlanga. I'm not. No. I'm just really not. I'm as impressed with him as I am with this idiot YouTube guys that are fighting. Because if you're in there fighting guys, if you're in there fighting guys that are just completely overmatched, then to me, you're not really showing anything. You know, you're not really, you're not even getting out of the first round. What does that tell you?
It's like beating up a teenager. You know,
how
much credit are you going to get as a full-grown man walking up and beating up a teenager? You're not going to get
like a middle
credit.
school kid.
It's like the conversation we had last show, bros. There's always going to be that person that's going to talk, as long as they've got that protective wall, whether it be behind a mic, behind a camera, on social media. But to say to a person's face, it's just like you. I'm not even going to mention the guy's name, but I'm talking about the idiot from this joke of a show. Actually had the nerve to call out Canelo Alvarez. I mean,
oh my God,
it's idiot. It's just, I mean, he wouldn't say that in the presence of, he might say that with about 50 of his entourage standing in front of him. But it was something interesting that I thought was interesting. There was a post that was made and there was no words said. It was actually kind of cool. And I like the guy. And he was just kicking a walk, and it was Conor McGregor. And I'm going to tell you something right now. If McGregor does make that fight happen, he's got to beat this guy to death. All right. Believe me. I mean, it'll be vicious, but he won't do that. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? You guys, still to this day, I have not watched what happened in that YouTube, whatever, that circus thriller. But something in my head thought, maybe this guy Askren, who didn't train, is not even going to follow boxing rules, because he's going to take the guy down and get him in a headlock and choke him out or something stupid like that. Because that would definitely get headlines. You know what I mean? At that point, But anyways, we digress. We got away from our topic. I don't want to waste any more time talking about that nonsense.
Yeah.
But so Berlanga, on paper, this guy, 23-3. It is glossy. He has been stopped a couple times. He's been stopped, actually knocked out twice. I don't know how many times he's been knocked down, but that doesn't bode too well for him. If you're a guy that's coming in, you've already been stopped twice, and if you look at his resume, the guys he was stopped by are not exactly world beaters. He got knocked out by a guy who was 5-5 a couple years back. So
that's kind of alarming at that point. So, but it's kind of also make the other guy Nicholson. It's got to make his. You got to kind of question his team and where they're thinking at. Is this just a payday, or what is it?
It's a payday. It's a payday. And you know what? I mean, I can't really blame the kid for saying, yeah, I'll take the fight. It's very good matchmaking by Top Rank and all the people involved. They're just, they're scouring the gyms and the box rec and finding the guys that hey, well, here's a guy that's, if you look at his record, it looks great, but when you really break it down and you really analyze it, it's like, whoa, is it really that great? But whatever. I mean, I'm excited to watch that card this weekend, because like I said, I love watching boxing. So I'll watch it. I'll tune in.
Yeah. And there's always the element of one punch to change a fight. You never know.
And everybody wants a fight right now. Cause I mean, it's after this last year of crappy, no deal fights, it's going to be good to actually start to get some fights in. These boxers have lives, livelihoods too.
Boxing is
just like everybody else.
Boxing is definitely there's definitely more and more fights being scheduled. I just got notification a little while ago, and I was talking to Robert about it 2 days ago. The kid Max's first official fight is confirmed for May 22nd.
Oh, it is.
In Phoenix. Yeah, May 22nd. He makes his pro debut in
Tell people a little bit about Max, Mike. Tell them a little bit about him.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll talk a little bit about this kid that I know before we get into the Showtime fights. But this kid Maximus Castro, here's the crazy thing about the kid. When I say kid, he's a kid. He hasn't even graduated from high school yet. He's another kind of like a Vito Melnicki kind of guy. But here's a guy with 140 plus amateur fights, and the reason why he's turning pro is because nobody wants to fight him anymore in the amateurs. He fights at 118 pounds. I watched him spar 9 rounds the other day. He did 9 rounds on. What's today? Tuesday? He did 9 rounds on Friday.
Yeah.
How do you look?
Wow.
With 2 separate guys. He looked fantastic.
Yeah.
The first guy he fought was an Orthodox kid out of the gym here in Montclair. It's called Chongo's Boxing. So he did 4 rounds with him, and you could tell after the first minute of the first round, Max was holding back a little bit because he knew the kid was maybe just not up to his level. But then the second kid he sparred was a little bit more competitive. He was a southpaw, and it wasn't that the kid was giving Max problems because of his ability. It was just Max maybe has not seen that many southpaws, believe it or not. And there was times when he was a little bit hesitant to kind of just let his hands go. But either way, here's a kid who's like literally he's 18 years old. He graduates he actually drives from he's staying here in California. He drives back to Phoenix to take a test for school, and then he'll be gone for a day, and then he'll turn right around and come back. And this kid is going to be this is another good one that Robert Scott. Yeah. This kid's going to be good. Like I said, 141 fights.
It's the kid who has a logo that kind of looks like a gladiator, right?
Yeah, that's his
Maximus, like Maximus the gladiator. Yeah,
Maximus. Yeah,
that's cool.
So, anyways, he fights May 22nd, which is about 4 weeks from 4.5 weeks away. So I'm excited, and if tickets are available, I don't know how they're going to work it out because it's Phoenix and they're opening up little by little. If there's a chance of us getting to that show, then I'll definitely. Make a plan to get us down
I'd love
there.
to be there. I saw the kid spar. He's really good, man.
I'll fly in.
Really good.
I think I met him last time I was there too. Yeah.
I think you might. Matter of fact, I think Eric, when you met him, he had just got
nice kid.
Yeah, so quiet. He's kind of a quiet kid. He's actually very quiet, but
I saw him in there when he was sparring with Rene Moreno.
Yeah, they were just doing work. Yeah.
I think
Moreno's a special product. That's another one that's just. To show you as good as Max is, I mean, to see Moreno in there, it's just amazing, dude.
Well, the thing about Moreno is the guys that he sparred with. That's what makes him so good. Anybody from Molina to Munguia to Chon Cepeda to Devin Haney he was Leo Santa Cruz's main sparring partner for Tank. I mean, he did like 4 weeks of camp with Leo, sparring Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So he's got a lot of experience, but
yeah, it was kind of, and I heard kind of making it a bit hard for Leo too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there was a lot of talk about it and stuff. But like I said, I mean, I see big things from Moreno, but he's going to be another guy that's going to run into the same issues like guys like Michael Norado. A lot of guys aren't going to want to fight him. They're going to try to sidestep these guys.
So many times, guys, they get fight signed, and guys they back out of the fight. They back out of the fight. They pull in a replacement. The replacement backs. I saw it happen to Rene in Houston. I was in Houston.
Yeah,
and he was supposed to fight on that.
Oh yeah, remember on the undercard. Yeah,
3 opponents all dropped out within a span of like 2.5-3 days.
Well, they're just going to have to do like what Johnny talked about it. And who I'm talking about obviously about John, the guy in Molina. He told him, he said, sometimes you just got to take that fight that people are going to say it's too big of a bite to take at this moment. Just take it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they're going to have to do.
Yep.
So let's talk more about some of these upcoming fights. What were you guys talking about?
We just were talking about the Emmanuel Navarrete versus Christopher Diaz fight, and then we got into the the Berlanga fight. That's the undercard. That's the chief support bout for the Navarrete fight. So that card's going to be good, but Showtime, I mean, and we said this right at the beginning of the broadcast. Normally, these promotions don't put this big schedule like that. They'll do piecemeal, 2 fights at a time. Maybe 2-3 days at a time. But Showtime just unleashed a gauntlet. They just opened the floodgates, opened the bank account, and said, "Hey, we're going to sign all these fights." And there's some great fights and some potential fight of the years in there. I mean, I see the Mario Barrios versus Tank Davis fight, and Paulie Malignaggi was on doing an interview yesterday talking about that fight, saying here's a guy, Mario Barrios, who has all the tools and all the ability to upset the apple cart to really, because he's a legitimate guy at 140. So what do you want to talk about first? Which fight on that card do you want to talk about?
Well, obviously, why don't we go ahead and start at the top? Let's go ahead and let's talk about the fight I'm excited about. Actually, is Luis Nery and Brandon Figueroa.
Yeah, Brandon Figueroa, who's the younger brother of Omar Figueroa. He's the champion now. Is he a champion or interim champion?
Interim champion right now.
And he's fighting Luis Nery, who I don't know. I remember about a month ago we were talking about Nery switching trainers, and I don't know. I hadn't heard who he elected to go with, but obviously he's in a transitional phase. Maybe the Figueroas think, well, we can catch him where he's kind of a little bit confused, whatever. But I see that as a very, very tough fight for Figueroa. I mean, in a fight where he could he takes a lot of punches already, Figueroa. I think that's a fight that could be
see a lot of
devastating.
reasons why Neary hasn't always looked stellar in all of his fights, but even when he looks bad, it's usually bad at some moments against really good fighters. He's kind of like that. He's got that same kind of like stigma around him, like Miguel Berchelt had. One of those guys that a lot of people just kind of avoid and kind of forget about, and he's been so dominating in that division. And this is just an opportunity for him to really show. And unless Figueroa has become this huge knockout puncher, because the thing is, Neary isn't just a puncher. He's actually a very good boxer. You know what I'm saying? He's actually a really good boxer, and he moves really well.
I got to show you guys something real quick. It's not boxing related. I just got a text message from, it's our good friend Neil, our Vegas insider. Neil, it was his birthday yesterday. Okay.
Happy birthday, Neil.
If he's watching, happy birthday, Neil. I was supposed to call him yesterday and I got so busy. I was doing all this stuff around the house, but Veronica just got him this shirt. You guys got to see if I could pull it up and show it to the camera. God damn it. Oh, my phone is ready to take a, anyways, it's a picture of Uncle Rico holding the football saying "over them mountains."
That's awesome, dude.
That's awesome. Dude, I want one of those shirts. Why can't I find a shirt like that?
That's awesome.
Anyway, so happy birthday, Neil. I think Neil is, how old is Neil yesterday? He turned 40.
157 years old.
48? 47 or 48.
Is he that young?
Yeah, he's younger than us by a couple years.
No, but the thing is that you got to understand that we've known the kid since he was what, 12, 13, 13, 14 years old.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
Over them mountains. That's hilarious.
There's a fight on tonight, or right now, actually.
Yeah, I think there was some fight. There were some fights right on Fox Sports.
Yeah, Fox Sports. It's Frank Martin versus Jerry Perez. So in about, well, no, I think it's actually going on as we speak.
I'm popping it up right now as we're talking.
Okay, so let's get back to the Showtime thing. So Figueroa versus Neary. Okay, Figueroa is a kid. He's undefeated. He's got, I gotta be honest. When I first saw Figueroa fight his first few fights, the kid impressed me. I met him. In fact, I met him over at when Johnny fought his brother. He came up to us, at the hotel and was talking to us. And he's actually was a nice kid, well-spoken. And he was very complimentary. He came up and just said, "Hey, Johnny, just wanted to say, congratulations on a good fight and all that." Even though his brother got the decision, and I don't think his brother won the fight, but either way, he was a nice kid, and he was impressing me at that moment. But then in his last fight, I can't remember who his last fight was, but he started. I mean, he takes a lot of shots.
That was a fight against you talk about Damian Velasquez.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of the guy he fought, but he takes a lot of shots, man. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not a good recipe.
Oh no, you know what? I think it was against Julio Ceja when he won a split decision. That was a fight previous to
yes, it was that fight where actually
it went to a draw. It was a draw.
It was a draw, and I thought to myself, the other guy might have pulled it out, but Figueroa is the PBC fighter, whatever. But the kid takes a lot of shots, man, and he's kind of a pretty boy. He's kind of a young, handsome kid. And you're like, you better work on that defense, man, because the face can only hold up to so much, especially with those little 8-ounce gloves on, So
no, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's going to be, if you can look back in Luis Neary's record and pick a fight that you think would match the quality of fighter that Figueroa is, that would be his 4-round destruction of McJoe Arroyo, who is very similar in the way he fights.
McJoe Arroyo?
To Figueroa. Yeah. So, I mean, you saw Neary had very little problems where if you go back and look at Figueroa's resume, you can't really fight a fighter that's multi-versatile like Neary. So this is a huge step up for Figueroa. I mean, I take my hat off to him for taking this challenge, and it shows that he's legit. We could be wrong. Like I said, I'm going to say it again. We were wrong about Burchell.
I was wrong. I was wrong.
I was right.
I was right.
I was right.
So let's go down the line. And so so that fight is happening in a couple of weeks. Another big fight coming up is obviously you got both Charlos, right? Both Charlos. No, May 29th, we've got Nonito Donaire returning to action. After his is this going to be his next fight after the fight with the monster Inoue?
Yes.
Or has he fought since then? No, this would be his next fight, right? And a fight that you and I, AJ, I think we covered that fight live. We woke up at what 3 or 4 in the morning to cover that fight from Saudi Arabia, and we said it, man. We said it going into that fight. Hey, people were counting Donaire out there saying no, it's going to be a massacre. And we said, do not count him out. He's back at the weight he belongs at.
That was the key, bro. That was the key.
Yeah.
We covered those points going into that fight. Was the fact that this wasn't Donaire cutting weight and going back to a division for the first time. Donaire did the process right. He went down there. He had about 2 or 3 fights. He got his body acclimated to that weight again.
Back to bantamweight 118, where he was
dominating out, where he was considered at one point the heir apparent to Manny Pacquiao and the pound for pound best fighter in the world.
Yep.
And believe me, it showed. I mean, he lost the fight. It was a close fight, but the facial fractures that Inoue suffered, it showed you. It was just a testament to what type of fighter Nonito Donaire is.
Yeah, and he's fighting a guy named Nordine Ubale. I don't know much about him.
Tough guy, very tough guy.
And the guy now, the guy is he the champion at 118, or is this for a vacant title? Because it says it's for the WBC bantamweight title.
Dubali's title.
So it's Dubali's title. Ubali.
So, yeah.
So this would be an interesting fight and a chance for Nonito to grab another strap. To add to the list of championships he's won. I'm glad to see the guy still fighting, because about 3-4 years ago, if you would have asked me if will Nonito be fighting into the 2020s, I would have said no, he'd be done by 2018. And here he is, resurgent, almost like reborn, right?
No, absolutely. And that's the thing is about Nonito Donaire. He's one of those fighters. You just can't count the guy out. Because you just don't know. I mean, is he the same Nonito Donaire that got, destroyed, by Rigondeaux? Or is he the Nonito Donaire that went in there and showed up and gave one of the best fighters in the world, and Inoue, the monster from Japan, everything he can ask for?
Yeah, and withstood those hard punches.
Walk through them.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was hurt a couple times, but he, for the most part, he survived those punches and actually hurt Inoue a couple times in that fight.
Yeah, he did. He actually did. Something that they kind of coveted. They didn't really talk too much about and stuff, but I mean, he did. I mean, he was putting some
and that's also, believe it or not, that's also a testament to Inoue, a guy that fought the best version, I think, of an Nonito Donaire and still won, and really in those last few rounds really kind of closed the show and convinced the judge that he was the winner of that fight. I mean, what do you say about that guy? That's another guy that's completely overlooked on the pound for pound rankings. I know he's on the top 10 pound for pound, but he's a guy that doesn't get a whole lot of mention when you talk about those top 3-4 guys, and he should. He really should.
He really should. But in this kid that he's fighting from France, I've seen this kid in a couple fights. I saw him in his fight against the tough Filipino Arthur Villanueva, who's just a tough as nails guys, and he stopped Villanueva in the 6th round. I also saw his fight against Rasheed Warren, a fight in which he won. He's a guy that's fought some really good fighters. This is going to be a test for Nonito. It's not going to be a walk in the park. This is a guy who's undefeated, who's coming in, who's actually got a pretty decent punch with 12 knockouts and 17 victories. So it's
coming off of that potential. I mean, that was I think up until the Chon Cepeda fight, that was a fight of the year contender. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Up until Jose Cepeda Baranchek. But let's jump to the next fight on the card. June the 19th, we got Jermall, the bigger of the two Charlo brothers, defending his title for WBC title against Juan Montiel.
Montiel, yeah.
Yeah, no relation to Eric Montiel, right? No.
Oh, you mean Fernando?
Fernando Montiel. No relation, right?
Not that I know of.
No, I don't know much about this Juan Macias Montiel. I don't know much about him. We know about Charlo. To me, this is just a stay busy fight. It's not a pay-per-view fight, so this is probably going to be on like either free Showtime or free Fox, right? So I mean, it's a good stay busy fight. Maybe it's a mandatory. I don't know. It's for the title, so maybe it's a mandatory.
No, it's not. It's not a mandatory. I tell you the thing that just kind of, you saw it even with Eddie Hearn, and I know Eddie Hearn's going to say what he wants to say and stuff like this. I mean, he was even a little disgusted and stuff by it. Montiel, if you go back, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but the fight that I remember him the most in was back in 2017 when he got knocked out in the 2nd round by Jaime Munguia. Jaime Munguia knocked him out in the 2nd round back in 2017.
Oh,
and, so you probably recognize the fight. If you went back, you remember it. But
interesting. I did not know that.
He was the guy. He was the guy that stopped James Kirkland in James Kirkland's last fight when James Kirkland was just completely shot.
Oh yes, that's why he's getting this shot.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, I'm just looking here on June 19th. We got 3 sets of fights that are going on. We got the Showtime fights. We have a pay-per-view, and then we have DAZN. It's showing DAZN Jaime Munguia versus to be announced. Obviously.
Oh yeah, that's right. They moved his fight from he was supposed to fight this Friday, Jaime, and obviously both opponents fell out, so he'll be fighting on that. So hey, June 19th,
that's the fight I'll be watching.
Back and forth. I'll definitely be watching.
This is also.
We also have. I'm sorry. We also have one in Jalisco, Mexico. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. versus Anderson Silva. For 10 rounds.
Yeah, that's that MMA /
light heavyweights.
Yeah, he's trying to crossover with Chavez. It's kind of silly.
Chavez versus Camacho?
That's an exhibition.
It's an exhibition, yeah. But I have to admit, though,
and then Omar Chavez versus Ramon Alvarez.
That should be good. I saw the Chavez versus Chavez Senior versus Arce, their exhibition. That was no exhibition. These guys went at it, dude. I mean, it was a hell of a fight, bro. But getting back, we were talking about. This is actually going to work out. This is an interesting matchup with Montiel. I'm going to tell you why. He's obviously going to come in with a lot of confidence based on what he did to Kirkland. How much Kirkland had left, we don't know.
Yeah, Kirkland got hurt the first punch I landed.
But this is going to be a way to kind of gauge Charlo and a possible matchup with Jaime Munguia later on. Munguia walked to a much better Montiel back in 2017, not the Montiel that dropped some fights and kind of struggled. So if Charlo goes in there, doesn't have a stellar performance and doesn't get this guy out there like he should, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to go back and say, especially, with Golden Boy or whoever, behind Munguia and say, hey, you know what? I think it's time for Charlo.
Because the triangle theory, a lot of people use that when trying to make a case for their fighter, but then when their fighter doesn't look good, they try to say, well, it doesn't really apply because fighter A can beat fighter B and fighter B beats fighter C. Doesn't mean A beats fighter C. So either way, but
especially when you're talking about, this is the 160 division, but in 154, they made that comment how J-Rock beat Jarrett Hurd beat this guy, this guy. It's around robin.
And hasn't really held water. Let's move 1 week further down the line. This is the one that I'm really excited about. Not only the main event, but the co-feature. The co-feature is Erickson Lubin versus Jason Rosario. Now, Jason Rosario is the one that just lost his 154-pound title to Charlo, to Jermell.
And he's making his middleweight debut.
No, they're fighting at 154 still. It says here 154.
No, I'm looking at junior middleweight.
Yeah, 154.
So yeah,
so we got Lubin coming down, huh?
Well, so Lubin's gonna back at his natural weight or where he's again, and that to me that's gonna tell a lot. Was Jason Rosario? Was it a fluke? Because he looked like he had the goods, and then he was doing well in that Charlo fight, but then he ended up getting caught, and then he just never kind of really recovered. And Lubin, we know he has that one loss. That one loss where it was just
Jamel Charlo, he just got caught.
Charlo, he just got caught, and it was like, man, and we were expecting much more out of the fight. And he's been fighting his way back and has basically been undefeated since he's come back. This is going to be a good fight, man. This is a good measuring stick. This is, I think, I hate to use the cliche, but this is a must-win fight for either one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because I'll tell you why. It's not a secret. I'm a big Erickson Lubin guy. I've liked Erickson Lubin ever since he came out of the amateurs. I think he's done some amazing stuff. He's fought some really good fighters on the way up. He's a guy that hasn't shied away from everybody. He has fights with Nathaniel Gilmore, with Gostia. I mean, you name it. This guy gets in there with whoever. He gets in there with the boogeyman of the divisions. There's a lot of guys who avoid him. He had that shocking defeat to Charlo. It was a great. I'm not gonna take nothing away from Jamel Charlo. It was a great punch at the right time. But watching Lubin later on, he's got a pretty good chin. I mean, he's going to do well, but this is going to be a tough fight because Rosario is a guy who comes in who's strong and big for the division. Lubin's kind of like Tim Tszyu. He doesn't look big, but he holds himself big for that division. It's a weird kind of thing about him where you look at him, you go like, I don't think he's that big. And then you see him against another guy like Charlie. Like, wow, his stature's, the way he's proportioned is different, but he's a big guy. So we'll see what happens.
Let's go ahead and jump to the main event because we got a lot of fights to cover here. Let's jump to the main event. We talked about it just briefly earlier. Mario Barrios defending his WBA junior welterweight title against Gervonta Davis, who's jumping up multiple divisions. Well, let's correct that.
Yeah.
Even though he fought for the 135-pound title last time, he technically the fight was contracted at 130. So this is him moving up 10 pounds. There's going to be a 10-pound difference on the day of the weigh-in for Gervonta Davis. I think this, I really, and Paulie Malignaggi, I saw an interview with him and he said the same thing. He doesn't feel that this is a good weight for Gervonta. He feels 135 is the limit, and only because of his stature. He's only a 5'5" guy. He's not tall.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that fight? I mean, does Gervonta have a built-in excuse? Well, if I lose, well, I shouldn't have been trying to go up 2 divisions or what?
I look at it this way, bro. Gervonta to me doesn't come off like the kind of guy who's going to take a loss, be in the company that he keeps with ease. Gervonta either knows something or he's supremely confident. He sees something in Mario Barrios that he feels that he can expose.
Yeah.
You go back and you look at some of Barrios's past fights, his fight against Ryan Carl, where he beats this guy, but then you go back after that and stuff, and his fight with the kid from Russia, Akhmadaliev or whatever, was a tough fight.
Oh, Akhmadaliev. Yeah, I thought Akhmadaliev pulled that out, if I remember right. But they gave the fight. You just
never know. I mean, Barrios is a tough guy, but he's not a killer of the division. He's a solid guy who's going to come into he throws a lot of punches, but he also takes a lot of punches. This could be a Leo Santa Cruz thing. We just have to see how Tank's going to transition his power from the 130 division to the 142 division. We'll see.
But I got to say this, though. This is not a knock on either fighter, or well, let me rephrase that. But we said it last week too. This is for anybody out there that was thinking that Gervonta Davis didn't want to fight guys like Ryan Garcia or guys like Devin Haney or whatever, or other guys at 135 like Tiffy. This is this just throws that right out of the freaking door, right out of the water, because this is a guy who's going up and fighting a real good champion at 140. I don't see anybody else clamoring to do that.
And a big guy that's actually almost 5'11". He's 5'10.5".
And he's not an old guy. He's a young, strong, undefeated world champion who's just getting his taste at the big time. And this is going to be a pay-per-view event. I mean, this is Gervonta daring to. I got to say, when I saw the fight, I was very impressed. I said, damn, Gervonta is not messing around. He's really trying to do something. And you and AJ, we talked about this. Yeah. I like Gervonta Davis.
I like Gervonta.
I think Gervonta's a good kid. Yes, he surrounded himself with Floyd for a while, and then Broner, and then there was a lot of knuckleheads around him. But you could see the kid. You could see that he's genuine. He's genuine. He cares for his family.
Yeah,
he cares for his young. I think he's got a young daughter.
I think he takes the sport very seriously. But
he's a fighter through and through.
This is the one factor that I think, and I hope Gervonta and his people look at this, because this is the kind of thing that can really hurt you going into this fight. And this is the fact that Mario Barrios, even though he's the recognized champion, is completely disrespected by every organization. He's rated literally 10 in the division where he is a champion. He's been disrespected since day one. This is a guy who nobody wants to fight. There was a time when even Josh Taylor was scheduled to fight against, and they found excuses why not to fight him and stuff, and then went this other route. So Barrios is going to have a huge chip on his shoulder saying, I'm not going to let a guy come up a couple of divisions. I don't care who he is. It could be Lomachenko. It doesn't matter. He's not going to come in here and push me around. This is his opportunity. A victory over Gervonta Davis will get him thrusted into that upper echelon of that division. Yep. and huge matchups against guys like possibly. I mean, how would you love to see Chon Zepeda, Mario Barrios? You can't make it better than that.
Yeah. And he's a guy that's done everything right. He's fought on multiple cards on the undercard. He's fought on the pay-per-view cards.
Like Omar, like Oscar Valdez. Doesn't always look great, but finds a way to win. And those are the guys that are scary today, man, is those guys that always find a way to win. They can take a mass amount of punishment, but work through it and win.
Well, that's a gut thing and a heart thing. And you can't train that into somebody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely right,
you either have it or you don't. So
let's go ahead and jump to July 3rd, 4th of July weekend. We got Chris Colbert versus And now, to me, this is a measuring stick on now. Chris Colbert, we've been watching. He's another guy like Mario Barrios has been fighting on all for the last couple of years. He's been highlighted on these PBC cards, whether as the main event or the co-main, and he's been doing everything right. Chris Colbert's fighting Yuriorkis Gamboa. And at this point, Gamboa is he's becoming the gatekeeper. But every once in a while, I mean, the fight with Devin Haney, I mean, yes, he lost the fight, but he gave Devin Haney all he could handle.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to say a lot about Chris Colbert, especially in Chris Colbert's last performance where I didn't think he looked stellar.
No.
He made a lot of mistakes. And this is a guy, obviously, you know, everybody knows him from the past documentary that he was a part of, where he came from in boxing and stuff. You know, this is a kid who was highly talented coming into the pros. He's kind of at this lingering stage right now where he's got to make a move. Gamboa is the kind of guy you want to get on your resume in order to kind of get you into some conversations and stuff. But I'll tell you right now, I don't think Gamboa is ready to be a gatekeeper yet.
I agree. I was thinking the same thing. Gamboa
I think Gamboa's going to take this very seriously. And if that Gamboa shows up that fought against Terrence Crawford, it could be a short night for Chris Colbert.
Yeah, very true.
Because the one thing you don't want to do against a fighter, a Puerto Rican fighter like Gamboa, is this Cuban fighter who has this immense amount of pride. Chris Colbert has this thing that he does. He likes to showboat. Matter of fact, his nickname Showtime. And he comes in there and he's got this really cocky narcissist. He's a great kid. Believe me, he's a great kid in real life. That's not the kind of thing you want to do. The last fighter who did that against Gamboa was Devin Haney. And Gamboa came back and made that fight very competitive. And I'm not going to match Chris Colbert against Devin Haney because, you know, two totally different fighters. But I'm just saying, don't put any more fuel on the fire.
Stop hitting your microphone.
You know?
He's popping in my ears.
Oh, this thing keeps falling on me, dude.
All right, let's go ahead and jump up 2 weeks from that day. We got Jermell Charlo, the younger brother, the younger, smaller Charlo fighting. Yeah, fighting a unified. In this fight to me was a little bit confusing against Brian Castano, who just won that title, the WBO title. From Patrick Teixeira. I really thought Castano was going to maybe go the route. Let me get a fight or two under my belt. I'm the champion now. But Brian Castano, here's a guy that obviously he really believes in his abilities and his work rate, because at first glance, when I look at this fight, I think to myself, Charlo is just too physically big and strong for Castano. But Castano is a workhorse and he's tough, man. He's a tough Argentinian. And I was talking to Robert about him and he says, that kid's tough. He said, that kid's going to keep coming at you. You're going to have to kill him to get him to stop coming at you. So yeah,
I think we're Castano,
that's for the undisputed titles at 154 pounds. That's for all four belts.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think Charlo really even thought about matching up against Castano until Terrence Crawford opened that can of beans, talking about a possible matchup against what they felt was the weakest of the champions in that division in Castano. At that point, Jermell Charlo, with his extreme, that you could tell he has a disdain for Terrence Crawford. He says, I'm going to take all the belts. So if you want to venture up to 154, now you got to go through me.
Yeah.
That's why he's taking this fight against Castano. So he's told his people, make it happen. Castano not being no, pussy, stepping up and do it. Hey, it could be, I think Charlo should win the fight, but Castano's got the skills. He's relentless. He's kind of a smaller version of a Canelo Alvarez in a way. You just never know, because there's been times Charlo hasn't looked all that great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Okay. August 14th, about a month later, on your birthday, AJ, this is another good one. The Filipino, John Real Casimero versus Guillermo Rigondeaux for the WBO bantamweight title, the other title at 118. Could you imagine the winner of this fight fighting the winner of the Nonito Donaire fight, unifying? Right, because obviously that's something they're going to talk about. That fight happens about a month prior, and whoever wins that Ubali versus Nonito Donaire is going to be waiting to see what happens in this fight for a unification bout. This John Real Casimero, he's a good fighter. He's the one that's promoted by Manny Pacquiao, right? Manny's involved with him. He's
very good fighter. Rigondeaux's looked like a monster in his last few bouts. I'm gonna be honest with you. Rigondeaux has been tearing through people left and right. He's really looked amazing in the ring lately, like a resurgence. So we'll see what's going to happen, because Rigondeaux, let's be honest, with the exception of Lomachenko, nobody's really been able to solve that puzzle. He's a very, very skilled fighter.
Very, very skilled fighter. And AJ, like, he's a lot like Gamboa. I mean, not only are they both from Cuba, but very prideful and very much like, hey, I'm no gatekeeper. I can still fight. I'm still committed to this game and I can fight. That's going to be a great fight, man.
And another thing about Gamboa is too, as you've noticed in his last few fights, he's got very underrated power. Lomachenko made that comment too, even though Lomachenko wasn't hit. He's probably hit about as much as you could fit in a shoebox. But Rigondeaux's got power. He does have power. So, I mean, if he catches you, you know, I mean, he's been doing that to these last few guys, just dropping guys left and right. I mean, it's like a new resurgence for Rigondeaux. That division, that bantamweight division is starting to heat up.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, we got a lot of fights to cover still, so that's why I'm jumping through these kind of quick.
Yeah.
2 weeks after that, August the 28th, right in the middle of summer, we have David Benavidez. Benavidez versus Jose Uzcategui. Now, Uzcategui, most famous, was a world champion, beat Darrell, lost his title to Caleb Plant in a fight that I got to be honest with you, that was Caleb Plant's most impressive performance. Yeah. He actually won the fight. I mean, he tired late and Uzcategui made a run, but I think Caleb Plant had just racked up too many points at that time. But this is a fight, like you said, AJ, is a measuring stick fight. I think if David Benavidez goes out there and blasts out Uzcategui in 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, blasts him out of there, then for sure Caleb Plant's never going to want to step into the ring with a David Benavidez. There's no way.
No. And I'll touch on it just briefly. I mean, honestly, like I said, I don't think Uzcategui, like I said, he's a tough guy. He kind of reminds me of Gongora, the guy that's up there, like you're just real stern, like a Sullivan Barrera. But let's be honest, David Benavidez and the way he moves and the way he throws those punches and stuff like this, I think David Benavidez sees that as a measuring stick, and he's going to make an example of Uzcategui on this night. Got it.
And 2 weeks after that, September 11th, what is that? Is it going to be 20 years since 9/11? Yeah. It'll be 20 years, exactly 20 years to the date. The day. Stephen Fulton Jr. will be fighting the winner of Brandon Figueroa versus Pantarita Neri. So, I mean, to be determined. So Stephen Fulton is guaranteed the fight against whoever the winner of that fight is.
That's based off of his last victory that he got and stuff that thrust him into that situation and stuff. Yeah.
Now this is just a Showtime fights we covered. Obviously, we can go back and we'll on another show we'll dedicate talking about the upcoming Top Rank and Matchroom fights because we got a lot of fights coming up there too. But guys, Showtime's put together here I'm very excited for most, if not all, of these fights because if not all, these fights can be really great fights. Let's just hope, knock on wood, all the fighters stay healthy. They all stay COVID free. They all test clean so that these fights can actually come off.
I think everybody should get COVID. That way we could just all have the immunity. You know what? Somebody with COVID, come give me a kiss.
So if you guys had to pick out of all these fights we just talked about, if you had to pick one fight that you're most excited about, what would you say?
That's easy for me. Tank Davis.
Davis.
Take Davis Barrios, yeah.
Only because
I'm intrigued.
Really you don't know what's going to happen. That's not something that happens all the time. No. You don't see.
But the one I want to be at, the one I want to be at is when they finally announce who Munguia is going to be fighting. I'd love to go to that fight.
Now, granted, on this card, okay, this was just the Showtime card. Now, in regards to the PBC, there's a lot of other PBC fights that are taking place. That are going to be taking place on either Fox or Fox pay-per-view. Most notably, Chris Arreola versus Andy Ruiz, and I understand that they just wrapped up filming it's like the 24/7 type, all access type show, and that's going to make it very interesting. And like AJ, like you said, it might be the last big fight for Chris Arreola, unless, he's basically, it's like win or go home. And Andy Ruiz, he's shed 30 pounds since his last fight, so he's taken fighting seriously again, whatever. I mean, I don't buy into all that too much because I think if you're in this sport, you got to take it seriously. You don't have no excuses. There's no days off. But either way, that's another fight coming up on pay-per-view May 1st that I'm very excited about.
I'm really excited about this fight. I think I'm excited by this fight for a couple of reasons. I think it's because of the fact that I want to kind of, in a way, maybe it's selfish, prove that the Reynoso's method doesn't always work. And in this case, it's the wrong method at the wrong time. Andy Ruiz, what he did in the second fight against Joshua was his own intention, was his own fault. Nobody told him to party. Nobody told him to do what he did, not take it seriously. But whatever Andy Ruiz did prior to that was successful because he beat Joshua at the right time. That's the same Andy Ruiz that should be going into this fight against Cristobal Arreola, not the new version of Andy Ruiz, the lighter, which means he's got to hit lighter. They're trying to make him more fleet of foot, which is a big mistake because he looks like a kid with two left feet trying to do ballroom dancing. He keeps looking. Cristobal is a very experienced guy and a dangerous guy. You can't, once again, they're using him as almost kind of like a gatekeeper. Like, hey, I'm going to show everybody how badass I am. How I'm back in the heavyweight division. It's a win-win situation for Arreola to get the opportunity, or even if he loses the opportunity. it's a disastrous situation for Andy Reese. If Cristobal Arreola stops him, that could be pretty much the end of him being considered a legitimate contender for the world title.
Yeah.
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 It's a must win for Andy Reese. People can look at it any way they want to look at it. It's a must win for Andy Reese.
Yeah.
Just like Joseph Parker's fight. It's a must win for Joseph Parker.
Against, he's fighting. It's just a couple weeks away, right?
Yeah,
Joseph Parker's fighting. He's fighting Derek Chisora.
It's a must win.
Yeah.
There is no second chance.
He can't go stink it up for another 10, 12 rounds. Yeah.
And if he looks and he fights the way he looked in his last fight, Derek Chisora just might, because Joseph Parker, for some reason, it takes him way too long to get that engine running. And against a guy that starts fast like Chisora, and the only opportunities, let's be honest, after 3 rounds, Chisora's done. But for 3 rounds, he could be dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you're right. So these are these upcoming fights are pretty good, man. I got to say, and Eric, you commented on a post I put, I think it was either today or yesterday on social media about Steven Espinosa was taking a lot of heat, man, the last year. People were saying, oh, Showtime's done, blah, blah, blah. He sat back and going, okay. They were having their meetings behind closed doors. They opened up the purse strings and they said, we're going to sign and they signed fight after fight after fight after fight. And, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the other promotions have to now play catch up.
Yep.
Because with the exception of one fight here, one fight there, nothing else in these other promotions is really exciting me. I'm not excited at all about this Triller thing. I think it's making a mockery of boxing. Top Ranks obviously having issues right now, that this whole deal with ESPN. I mean, we got quite a few fights during the pandemic, but now that when things are opening up, it seems like the schedules, I don't even know what's going on with it. And then the fights that they do have scheduled are getting canceled. I mean, the Taylor Ramirez fight, they just announced, I think just yesterday, where it's actually going to be. They said Las Vegas, but they just barely announced the venue, and that fight's only a couple weeks away. And then you got the co-main event on that fight, Chon Cepeda's. The commission wouldn't sanction the fight, so Chon is now without an opponent. He's probably I know he's training because I talked to his brother, and I know Chon's training, but it's like, how serious can you train? We don't even know who you're going to fight. And for a guy,
there's another thing that's going on too this year, bro. I don't know if you've noticed it, but these fights where people think that we're just going to bring a person in last second, go back and look at guys like what happened to like Warrington and a few others. These are starting to turn into dangerous fights. It's almost like it's a lose-lose situation. You don't know much about the fighter. You get in there and you don't know about some of these imports. I'm sure that at this stage, Chon doesn't even want to have to deal with that because it's an unfair advantage for him. It's a win-win. The other guy's going to come and do whatever he was doing his fight before. But when you're a fighter at Chon Cepeda's level, he really takes time in figuring out what his plan's going to be. And you can't have a plan if you don't know anything, if it's a complete mystery.
You train to the fighter. You train to your fighter. You train
exactly.
To,
So to me, it's like, it's making it harder and harder for a lot of these guys. And you're seeing this more and more,
Hey, can I just mention one more thing?
Absolutely.
Michael, what you were saying about, with Showtime and the other venues having to actually step up. Triller, just don't even try. Just from a boxing fan to Triller, just stop.
Well, obviously they got this one coming up with George Kambosos.
They're gonna flame out soon.
It's horrible.
Enough. They'll flame out soon enough.
You guys are the worst thing that I've seen in boxing. My life.
I'd rather watch Art Dorr put his tough man competitions on.
But at least it's boxing.
You're right.
It's just the elements that are surrounded around it is just, it makes it a circus show. And people, at least I know, not the casual fans, but the hardcore fans look at it that way. But obviously we got to have to, it shows you the character of Teofimo Lopez and his people, the fact that this promotion won the purse bid and they actually took it because they could have denied. They just said, no, you don't have the moral fiber that we need to keep our champion legitimate.
The bottom line is that they priced themselves out, and not Kambosos, because I think Kambosos would have taken anything they threw at him. But Teofimo Lopez priced himself out, and everybody told him, I'm not paying you that. You ain't worth that. Let this dipshit who ran Relativity Media come in and pay you all this money, and it's going to flame out. And it could backfire, man. It could backfire on all of them. It backfired on Regis Prograis. I know right now he's kicking himself, going, man.
He's got to be kicking himself.
Like, man, I didn't look good. The whole thing was a fucking joke.
Look at Ivan Redcheck. He's done, bro. I mean, for him to even try to get a fight, you know how many promotions are looking at him? He's done.
He's done. And you know what? The saddest
I'd
thing
have
about
a
that,
chance of getting a fight.
the saddest thing about that whole thing was I respect his trainer, Jack Mosley. Jack Mosley trains him, and I respect Jack Mosley. He lives right here where I live. He lives in Laverne.
I've met Jack a few times. I know you have too. He's a great guy.
I used to run into him at the store and stuff, but he's a good guy. And and this is, he hasn't had a lot of fighters lately. Ever since Shane retired, he doesn't have his grandson. He doesn't have Shane Jr. Shane Jr.'s training, I think, with what's the kid's name out of the North Hollywood area? What's his name? It'll come to me. But Pullman. Pullman's boxing club. And he's a good trainer, but it's a shame that he had to be part of that spectacle. He's probably going, God damn, man, you just, if this is my last big profile fight, you made it like that.
You have to wonder too if he's even gonna have that fighter anymore either, because I'm sure Mosley Sr., which, he's probably I have a lot of respect for, would never agree to any theatrics. So whatever Redcatch was doing, I still think was premeditated and was something that was scripted to him by Thriller. No blame on Regis Prograis or even Jack Mosley. This is all Ivan Redcatch and whoever put those extra dollars in his pocket.
Yep.
Yeah, there's something funny happened there. But we're what else, you guys? We got about 5 minutes left for today's show. So what do you guys? Anything else you guys want to cover before we?
Well, let's talk about. We got obviously. I don't know how far away is Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo Alvarez. That's pretty close, right?
Well, we'll do a quick 5 minutes on that because that's obviously going to take an entire show. Stop chewing.
I got a really bad plugged up ear and it helps with my ear right now.
I don't know, man. I saw Billy Joe made a comment. He quote today, "I don't give a F about the money. I don't give a F about this. I'm here to win the fight." I hope he does come to win the fight, and that'll make it an interesting fight. We don't want him to come in here and lay down,
Billy Joe would never lay down, but the problem is that he did the one thing, and I'm going to say it again, the one thing you don't want to do going into a fight with Canelo Alvarez, and that is you do not want to get under his skin, and he got under his skin. He questioned Canelo's heart. He questioned Canelo's commitment to the sport, his choice of opponents, and I'm thinking to myself,
really?
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself,
how did I miss?
Okay, first of all, Billy, who have you fought? What's your regularity as far as turning around on fights? This guy's been going around setting boxing world on fire. He's been holding the gavel with the fire for boxing above everybody to this date.
Yep.
He's the new Pacquiao
because of Canelo Alvarez.
So Canelo's going to make an example. I don't care what anybody says. I've been right on Canelo. He's going to make an example of Billy Joe Saunders, and it's going to be in dramatic fashion. And he's going to either make Billy quit or he's going to knock him out.
Yep.
It's going to be more devastating than we did against Kovalov.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's not going to take him 11 rounds.
Last time 6 rounds?
No. He's going to make Canelo will let it go a few rounds because Canelo wants to punish him. But he's going to make this guy shit his pants. He's going to make him quit in his corner, and he's going to look at him. He's going to say, "That's it, man. You were nothing." Yeah. And then Canelo.
And this will be his career high payday, and then he's he can just ride off into the sunset. Buy himself a caravan and just be an Irish traveler.
It always makes me wonder sometimes, and let's say this before we get going. I wish I could clone Canelo Alvarez. And I'm not trying to say Canelo hasn't made mistakes in the past, and he hasn't been gifted some decisions that were questionable.
Yeah,
I know. But here's a guy that really puts his heart and soul into the sport and really makes himself a better fighter.
He loves.
And some of these guys that are out there, guys like Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andre, who always seem to use his name to just try to get their name out there. I wish I could just kind of build a couple Canelos and say, okay, now you get him, and let's see what really happens. Based on Demetrius Andre's last performance, what's going to happen to him. Jamal Charlo,
he starts off strong. He actually looks good for 3-4 rounds. By midway through the fight, Canelo catches up to him and knocks him out.
3 rounds.
I mean, the thing is, like I said, those are ones. But then again, you got to look at Canelo Alvarez, and you got to look at the fighters that just out of sheer wisdom, he knows which ones that he's not going to walk into their front lawn when they told him to stay out of it. He's not going to walk into David Benavidez' front lawn. There's no reason for it and stuff, Would he like Gennady Golovkin? Yeah, but I think he's punishing Gennady. Gennady, I think he's doing this just to say, hey, dude, every day that goes by, you're getting older. You keep fighting these nonsense guys. Eventually somebody's going to come up and knock you off. Maybe he just doesn't want to take that chance. Who knows? But the bottom line is it's not going to happen,
Yeah.
Well,
I got to admit, I soured on Canelo a little bit after that first fight, but in hindsight now, I think to myself, it wasn't Canelo's fault. He didn't tell Adelaide Bird to just turn in some ridiculous scorecard.
He would have accepted it. Canelo's he's never been a guy who's gonna sit there and cry and moan. He didn't cry and moan after Mayweather.
Yeah.
He took that risk, and people give him shit about it. I'm like, dude, he was a kid, man.
Yeah.
How many of you would like to see that today? I'd love to see it. Do it at 154, Floyd. Come on, man. If you're such a tough guy, dude, that'd be a 1-round destruction, bro. 1 round over.
Yeah.
You know?
Canelo would go on there and
looking at
hurt
a
him.
completely different Canelo Alvarez.
I heard a thing when Floyd was talking about it. He was saying, dude, if I really got serious, I could come back and I'll school him. I was like, no, you can't, Floyd. You don't need to stop, right, dude? You're damaging your legacy enough. Go find some Korean juggler and fight him in South Korea, dude. All right. Believe me, just stop with this shit, you know?
Yeah.
So
he needs to fight. You know what? With all the gender specific crap, he needs to go find a female boxer and go fight her.
Yeah. Hey, but real quick off the subject, guys, before we get off here Eric, I saw yesterday over in Oregon, I saw a video about a meteor shower. Did you see that?
No.
There was a huge meteor shower in Oregon. I'll send you the video. It almost looked like missiles. It was really crazy.
Yes. Send it to me. It'll probably be the first thing I've seen. Yeah. I haven't seen anything. You know what? I'm too busy with all kinds of other things to really worry about any of that stuff. I did the other day get the chainsaw out. Me and a whole bunch of buddies went to a friend's house, and he had probably 30 trees down and from the big windstorm we had this winter. And we were just sawing the heck out of these trees. It was a lot of fun. So
I'm barely holding on to my war against the bees right now. I'm barely winning, dude. It's a give and take. They got the best of me last night. Right after practice, I tried to go and move my barbecue again. I got stung 2 more times. I said, God damn it, dude.
AJ, you need to go find an army surplus store and go buy a mosquito net for your, like, the hat kind, and then just duct tape that sucker to your face.
I read a thing,
long sleeve stuff. I know, believe me, I've done this.
I read a thing. If you get stung 12 times, you're in a lot of trouble. Okay.
Yeah.
So last night was number 9. So I'm at 9. So I'm good. Right after we get done here, it's back to battle again. You know what I'm saying? I hate to hurt bees, man, but you know, I got to get my yard back, man. I got to get it back.
Africanized bees though, right?
Oh, man, dude. I've been fighting them like crazy.
Ones.
I don't feel good anymore, dude. I'm telling you. I'm gonna be like Jeff Goldblum. I'm gonna turn into the Fly, dude. I'm gonna be like,
dude, get a whole bunch of whiskey inside of you. You'll be all right. You'll be good to go.
So where are we at right now? Is that it?
We're good, guys. We're good. I got to get going. It's 6:02 right now. So we're gonna be back on Sunday, 5:00. We'll obviously circle back and talk about what happened this past weekend or this coming up weekend in fights.
Back.
Yeah, but we'll be back to talk about what happens this weekend in these fights. ESPN Plus, right? The Navarrete Diaz fight. I mean, I'm interested. Let's see what happens. Yeah. We'll come back and talk about it. And there are some fights on right now too. So those fights are.
I'm actually watching them. I'm gonna go watch them right now.
Those fights are on right now. So let's get to it.
Cool.
All right, guys. Good show. It's nice good seeing you guys again. For all of us at End of the Ring Live, I am Mighty Mike.
I'm AJ Rage.
Eric the Red.
And we'll see you guys on Sunday, 5:00 East, 5:00 on the West Coast, 8:00 East.